The first morning of SS1 did not feel like a normal school day. For Jane, it felt like walking into a place where everyone already knew her name even before she said a single word. She stood in front of the big school gate, holding her bag tightly like it was the only thing keeping her steady. The school was huge, loud, full of life. Students in clean uniforms were already gathered in groups, laughing, talking, filming each other on their phones. But Jane did not move. Her eyes scanned the building slowly, like she was trying to convince herself this was still her old school, but it wasn't anymore. Because everything had changed during the holidays. One post, one rumor, one headline, and suddenly, her life was no longer private. Everyone now knew. Jane is the daughter of Talia Maggie, a famous American rapper from Los Angeles, a woman people talked about online, a woman known for bold music, flashy lifestyle, and controversial fame. Someone who lived in a world far away from here, yet somehow, that world had now crashed into Jane's quiet life in Nigeria. Jane swallowed hard. She did not even understand how it became public. She did not even know when people started connecting the name. All she knew was simple. She used to be invisible. Now she was not. A car horn sounded behind her. "Move!" a student shouted. Jane quickly stepped aside and walked into the school compound. And that was when it started. "My name is Patience. Welcome to Etanalog." She heard whispers immediately. "Is that her? That's Talia Maggie's daughter. No way, she looks so normal. She's acting like she doesn't know she's famous." Jane lowered her head and kept walking. Her heart was beating too fast. She was not used to this. Before the holiday, she was the quiet girl in class, the one who sat alone, the one nobody really talked to unless it was necessary. She did not have friends, not because she wanted it that way, but because it just became her life. But now even that silence had turned into attention. Too much attention. As she walked toward her class, a group of girls standing near the corridor suddenly turned. One of them smiled sharply. "Look who is here," she said. Jane tried to ignore them, but they stepped closer. "Do you think you are now better than everyone because your mother is a superstar?" Another girl asked. Jane stopped walking. She said nothing. That silence made them bolder. One boy from SS2 leaned on the wall nearby, smiling like he had been waiting for this moment all day. "Guys, leave her," he said jokingly. Then he looked directly at Jane. "Or should I say Miss Talia Maggie?" A few students laughed. Jane's fingers tightened around her bag strap. She wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Another boy walked past and laughed loudly. "I heard her mother's song. The one, what is it called again? Please Me All Night. He laughed harder. "So this is her daughter." The laughter spread. Jane's face burned. She did not know what to do with her hands, or her eyes, or even her breathing. She just stood there, and that made it worse. Because in a school like this, big, rich, full of confident students, silence looked like weakness, and weakness became a target. Someone raised a phone. Wait, don't stop," a girl said excitedly. "This is content." Jane turned slightly. A camera was already pointed at her. They were recording her. Her heartbeat dropped. "No, please don't," she whispered. But it was already too late. Someone uploaded it right there in real time. Jane did not even reach her classroom before the first video started spreading. By the time she sat down in her seat, people were already looking at her differently. Some were laughing quietly. Some were staring. Some were pretending to be friendly, but their eyes were not kind. "Hi, Jane," one girl said sweetly, sitting beside her. "We can be friends, right?" Jane looked at her. Something felt wrong. The girl's phone screen was still recording. Jane slowly looked away. So even friendship was not real anymore. It was all attention, all content, all her name being used like entertainment. Break time came faster than she wanted, and that was when the worst moment of the day happened. She was walking alone near the stairs when a voice called out loudly, "Hey!" Jane stopped. She turned slowly. A group of SS2 boys were standing near the railing. One of them smiled like he had been waiting all morning. "Your mom," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "Does she know James has a crush on her?" The group burst into laughter. Jane froze. Her mind struggled to process the words. Then another boy added, laughing, "Maybe we should invite her to Parents' Day instead of her dad." More laughter. Louder this time. Jane's eyes dropped to the floor. Her chest felt tight. She wanted to disappear. A crowd was forming now. Not big, but enough. Enough for embarrassment. Enough for recording. Enough for people to remember. Someone shouted, "Smile for the camera, celebrity daughter." Another voice followed, "Is it true your mom dances like that in her videos?" Jane flinched. That was the moment she turned and walked away quickly. Not running, but almost. Because running would make it worse, and she knew it. She kept walking until she reached a quiet corner of the school. Only then did she stop. Only then did she breathe. Her hands were shaking now. For the first time that day, her silence broke. But no one was there to hear it. School ended, but the wait did not leave. Outside the gate, the driver was already waiting. Jane entered the car without saying a word. The ride home was quiet, too quiet, but inside her head, everything was loud. The laughing, the cameras, the names, her mother's name being used like a joke. When the car finally stopped in front of the mansion, Jane did not wait. She stepped out quickly and walked inside. "Mom," she called immediately. Her voice echoed through the big house. No answer. She walked faster now. "Mom!" Still nothing. A maid stepped out from the hallway. An elderly woman. Calm eyes. Soft voice. "Jane," she said gently, "your mother is not home." Jane froze. "What do you mean she is not home?" The maid hesitated, then spoke carefully. "She has work, she traveled again." Jane's face changed instantly. "No," she said quietly. "She said she would be here. She said she would stay." The maid looked down. "She tries, but her schedule." Jane did not let her finish. Her eyes filled slowly. Not just sadness. Something deeper. Something heavier. Because today was not just a bad school day. Today was the day she needed her mother the most. And her mother was not there. Jane took a step back. Her voice broke slightly. "So I came home for nothing." And for the first time since the holidays ended, Jane felt it clearly. Fame had found her, but family had left her standing alone inside it. The days after that first week did not get better. If anything, they became worse. Every morning, Jane would sit in the back seat of the car and stare out of the window as the driver took her to school. She never looked excited. She never looked happy. She looked like someone preparing for a battle. Because that was what school had become. A battle. Not with fists. Not with teachers. But with eyes. Whispers. Phones. And people who suddenly cared about her for all the wrong reasons. The moment she stepped out of the car each morning, students noticed. Some pointed. Some smiled. Some recorded. Some pretended not to stare while staring anyway. It did not matter if they were juniors, classmates, or seniors. Everybody seemed to know her. Everybody seemed to have an opinion. One afternoon during lunch break, Jane was sitting alone when a group of girls walked past her table. One of them laughed. "That is her." Another girl looked at Jane, then shook her head. "I still can't believe Talia Maggie is her mother." The girls laughed. One of them began quietly singing one of Talia Maggie's famous songs. The others joined in, not because they loved the song, because they wanted Jane to hear it. Jane lowered her eyes to her food. She stopped eating. The girls noticed and laughed even harder. A few days later, another problem appeared. Students started using her for attention. Some would suddenly act friendly. Some would ask for pictures. Some would invite her to sit with them. But Jane quickly realized something. Most of them were not interested in her. They were interested in what came with her. The fame, the attention, the story. One girl took a selfie with Jane during break. Later that evening, Jane saw it online. The caption read, "Me and Talia Maggie's daughter. We are besties now." Jane stared at the screen. They had spoken for less than 5 minutes. Besties. She quietly locked her phone. The loneliness felt even heavier. Because fake friendship hurt differently. At least enemies were honest. But fake friends smiled first. Then used you. Weeks passed. And the jokes continued. One afternoon, a senior boy shouted across the corridor, "Jane!" The entire hallway turned. Jane immediately regretted stopping. The boy grinned. "Tell your mother to release another album." His friends laughed. Another boy added, "Maybe she can make me famous too." More laughter. Jane walked away. but she could still hear them behind her. Every day felt like this. Every single day. And each time it happened, she missed her father more. Because when her father was alive, life had been simple, quiet, normal, safe. Now nothing felt safe anymore. Not even school. Not even home. Especially home. Because her mother still wasn't there. Another trip. Another performance. Another interview. Another city. Another country. And every time Jane asked where she was, the answer was almost always the same. Work. One evening, Jane sat alone in her room. The mansion was beautiful, big, expensive, comfortable, but somehow it felt empty. The room looked perfect, yet she felt miserable. Then she heard movement downstairs. Voices, footsteps, car doors, excitement from the staff. Jane slowly stood up. Something inside her already knew. Her mother was home. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Jane did not answer. Another knock. Still silence. The door slowly opened. Blessing Cooper stepped inside. Or as the world knew her, Talia Maggie. For a moment, she simply stood there looking at her daughter. Jane was sitting on the edge of the bed. Her eyes looked tired, much older than 15. And that hurt Blessing more than she expected. Because for all her fame, for all her success, for all the sold-out shows and screaming fans, she still did not know how to fix the sadness sitting in front of her. "Hi," Blessing said softly. Jane looked away. The silence was immediate, painful. Blessing walked closer. "I missed you." Jane laughed, but there was no happiness in it. "You missed me." Blessing stopped. Jane finally looked at her. There were tears already gathering in her eyes. "You are never here." The words landed heavily. "You always say you're coming back. Jane, you always say you will spend time with me." Blessing opened her mouth, but Jane was no longer holding back. "I lost my dad." Her voice broke immediately. "I lost my dad." The room became silent. "I don't have him anymore." Tears rolled down Jane's face. "And every time I need you, you are gone too." Blessing felt her heart tighten, because there was no defense against that, no excuse, no perfect answer. Jane stood up. "If you don't have time for me, then maybe I should go back to Grandma and Grandpa." "Jane! At least they are there." The words hit harder than any criticism online, because they came from her daughter. The daughter she was trying so hard to know. The daughter she had missed most of her life. "I want to be left alone." Blessing took a step forward, but Jane had already turned away, facing the wall, crying quietly. The conversation was over, at least for now. A few minutes later, Blessing walked out of the room. She found Eunice waiting outside. The elderly woman had probably heard everything. Eunice looked at her gently. "Give her some time." Blessing sighed. "I don't know what I'm doing." That confession surprised even her. Eunice smiled sadly. "You are learning. It doesn't feel like it. Parenting rarely feels easy." Blessing rubbed her forehead. "I can perform in front of 50,000 people." Eunice nodded. "But this is one little girl." Blessing laughed softly. A tired laugh. "Exactly." That night, after everyone slept, Blessing sat alone with her tablet. For the first time in a long time, she looked at her schedule properly. Concerts, appearances, interviews, brand deals, studio sessions, travel plans. The list felt endless, and suddenly she saw something she had ignored before. Every space was filled, except the space where her daughter was supposed to be. The realization hurt, because she remembered a promise made to a dying man, Jane's father. She remembered sitting beside his hospital bed. She remembered the fear in his eyes, and she remembered what she told him. "I will take care of her." The memory stayed with her all night. The next morning, Blessing knocked on Jane's door again. This time Jane allowed her inside. The conversation started awkwardly, slowly, carefully, like two strangers trying to become family. Then eventually Jane told her everything. The bullying, the videos, the teasing, the students using her mother's songs to mock her, the laughter, the embarrassment, everything. Blessing listened quietly, not interrupting, not defending herself, just listening. When Jane finished, there were tears in both of their eyes. "I hate school," Jane whispered. Blessing moved closer. "No." Jane looked at her. "You hate what some students are doing. Jane said nothing. Blessing gently held her hand. "I am sorry." Those words surprised Jane, because they sounded real. Not like something prepared, not like something a celebrity would say. Just a mother, trying. "I cannot change the past," Blessing continued softly. "I cannot give you back the years we lost." Jane looked down. "And I cannot bring your father back." The mention of him immediately made Jane's eyes fill again. "But I am here now." Blessing squeezed her hand. "And I will keep trying." For the first time, Jane did not pull away. That same day, Blessing contacted the school. Meetings were arranged. School authorities were informed. Teachers were told to pay closer attention. Students were warned about harassment and bullying. And after that meeting, Blessing did something unexpected. She cleared the rest of her afternoon. No interviews, no meetings, no studio, nothing. Just Jane. That afternoon, mother and daughter went shopping together. The bodyguards followed from a distance. The driver waited nearby. And for a few hours, something changed. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. They laughed a little, talked a little, smiled a little. And for the first time since moving into the mansion, Jane felt like she was spending time with her mother. Not Talia Maggie, not the superstar, not the celebrity the world knew. Just her mother. And deep inside, that was all she had wanted from the beginning. Unfortunately, neither of them knew that school was about to become even more complicated. The meeting with the school helped. For about 3 days. Then everything became worse. Much worse. The problem was no longer just students laughing at Jane. Now people wanted attention. And Jane had become the easiest way to get it. Everywhere she went, somebody was watching. Everywhere she stood, somebody had an idea. Everywhere she walked, somebody wanted content. One Monday morning, Jane walked out of her classroom after getting permission from her teacher. She was simply heading down the corridor. Nothing special, nothing dramatic, just a normal student walking through school. Later that evening, a student uploaded a short video. The caption said, "Talia Maggie's daughter skipping classes." The video exploded. Thousands of views became hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands became millions. People who had never met Jane started commenting. Some criticized her, some defended her, some simply wanted to join the conversation. The worst part, the video was completely misleading. Jane had done nothing wrong, but nobody cared, because the truth was boring. The story was more exciting. When Jane saw it online, she felt sick. She stared at the screen, then slowly put her phone down. It felt unfair. She had done absolutely nothing. Yet somehow she was still becoming entertainment. The next day another video appeared, then another, then another. Students started posting clips of her entering class, leaving class, walking through hallways, sitting during lunch, reading alone, waiting for her driver. Even doing absolutely nothing had somehow become content. And every post came with a dramatic caption. Some were harmless, some were embarrassing, some completely twisted reality. One student posted, "Celebrity daughter refuses to talk to anyone." Meanwhile, Jane had simply been sitting alone like she always did. Another post claimed, "Jane thinks she's better than other students." The video showed her quietly walking through a corridor. Nothing else. No evidence. No explanation. Just a title. And somehow people believed it. The views kept growing. The attention kept growing. The pressure kept growing. Soon, students started creating harmless pranks and challenges around her. Whenever she entered certain parts of the school, groups of students would suddenly gather nearby pretending they wanted autographs. Others would dramatically whisper and point whenever she walked past. Some would pretend to interview each other like reporters. Some would loudly announce her arrival like a celebrity entering an award show. Most of them thought it was funny. Jane did not. Every joke reminded her that she could no longer be invisible. And deep inside, that was all she wanted. To disappear. To be normal. To be left alone. One afternoon during break, she sat under a tree. A place she normally used when she wanted silence. But even there, students found her. A boy suddenly walked over. He smiled. "Can I ask you something?" Jane already knew where this was going. "No." The boy laughed. His friends were recording from a distance. "See, she rejected my interview." More laughter, more content, more views later. Everything had become content. Everything. Meanwhile, outside the school walls, the story was becoming bigger than anyone expected. Millions of people were now watching these videos. Some videos crossed 20 million views. Others crossed even more. Influencers started reacting. Blog pages started reposting them. Comment sections filled with arguments. People who knew nothing about Jane suddenly had opinions about her life. One morning, Blessing's manager walked into her office looking worried. Chelsea had worked with Blessing for years. She had seen scandals. She had seen controversies. She had seen media storms. But this felt different. Blessing looked up from her laptop. Chelsea placed a tablet in front of her. "You need to see this." Blessing frowned. Then she started scrolling. One video, then another, then another. Her face slowly changed. By the 5th video, she was no longer calm. By the 10th video, she was furious. Every clip showed her daughter. Her daughter looking uncomfortable. Her daughter looking scared. Her daughter looking sad. Her daughter trying to avoid attention. And yet people kept filming her. Blessing suddenly remembered all those nights Jane cried. All those conversations. All those moments she said school was becoming unbearable. Now she could finally see it herself. And she hated it. That same afternoon, she contacted the school again. The discussion lasted a long time. But this time the school's answer frustrated her. "We are doing everything we can. But students keep posting things outside school. Some recordings happen before school. Some happen after school. A lot of this is beyond our direct control." Blessing understood. But that did not make her less angry. Something had to change. Eventually the school made a major decision. Phones would no longer be allowed during school hours. Students would have to leave devices at home. The new rule shocked everyone. And almost immediately, the blame landed on Jane. Students began complaining. Students began gossiping. Students became even more upset. And many of them decided there was only one person responsible. Jane. The mocking returned. Stronger than before. One student whispered loudly, "Because of her, we lost our phones." Another said, "My parents are angry because of this new rule." Others nodded, as if Jane had personally created it, as if she had wanted any of this. Every day felt heavier. Every day felt longer. Every day felt harder. One morning things became even more overwhelming. The driver's car had barely stopped outside the school gate when reporters rushed forward. Influencers followed behind them. Cameras appeared everywhere. Questions started flying. "Jane, how does it feel being Talia Maggie's daughter?" "Jane, are the rumors true?" "Jane, do you like being famous?" "Jane, what do you think about the videos?" Jane froze. The attention was immediate, overwhelming. The bodyguards quickly stepped in. The driver helped guide her through the crowd, but the damage was done. By the time she reached class, her hands were shaking. Again, that evening she locked herself in her room. Not crying this time, just exhausted, completely exhausted. Meanwhile, something important was happening that nobody knew about. Not Blessing, not Eunice, nobody. Every few days, Jane secretly called her grandparents, and every call ended almost the same way. "I miss home. I miss Grandpa. I miss Grandma. I miss Dad." Sometimes she cried while talking. Sometimes she tried not to. But her grandparents always heard it anyway. One evening, her grandmother listened quietly as Jane spoke. Then she asked softly, "Why do you keep letting them decide how you feel?" Jane was silent. Her grandfather joined the call. "Your father always taught you something." Jane wiped her eyes. "What?" "Being quiet does not always solve problems." Jane listened carefully. Her grandfather continued, "You have a voice. You are allowed to use it. You do not have to be rude. You do not have to fight. But you should not spend your life hiding." The words stayed with her. Long after the call ended, long after she returned to bed, long after the room became quiet. For the first time in months, Jane lay awake thinking. Not about running away, not about hiding, not about transferring schools, but about something else. Something new. Something that frightened her. Standing up for herself. And far away in another room of the mansion, Blessing sat alone reviewing another packed schedule, completely unaware that her daughter was slowly reaching a breaking point. A breaking point that was going to change everything. The breaking point came quietly, not with a fight, not with a viral video, not with another cruel joke at school. It came after months of pressure, months of attention, months of feeling like her life no longer belonged to her. Jane was tired, very tired. Every morning she woke up feeling nervous. Every day she wondered what new post would appear online. Every day she wondered who was talking about her. Every day she wondered if anyone actually saw her as Jane. Not Talia Maggie's daughter, just Jane. One evening she sat on her bed holding her phone. The room was dark. The mansion was quiet. Her eyes were red. She had just finished another call with her grandparents. This time she cried harder than usual. "I can't do this anymore." Her grandmother listened. Jane continued crying. "I just want things to be normal." Her grandfather spoke gently. "Do you want us to come get you?" The question filled the room with silence. Jane did not answer immediately, because deep down she already knew the answer. Tears rolled down her face. "Yes." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Please." The next few days passed slowly. Jane told nobody, not Blessing, not Eunice, nobody. But inside her heart she knew something was coming. Then one afternoon it happened. A black vehicle stopped in front of the mansion. Jane looked through her bedroom window. The moment she saw them, her eyes filled with tears. Grandma, Grandpa, they were here. For the first time in months, a smile appeared on her face. A real smile. She rushed downstairs. The front door opened, and before anyone could say anything, Jane ran straight into her grandmother's arms. The elderly woman held her tightly, very tightly, like she was protecting her from the whole world. Jane started crying immediately. Her grandfather placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay." Jane nodded, but the tears would not stop. A few moments later, Blessing entered the living room. She had just returned home. At first she looked confused. Then she saw Jane's grandparents. Immediately, something felt wrong. The atmosphere felt heavy. Nobody was smiling anymore. Nobody looked relaxed. Blessing slowly sat down. "What is going on?" Jane's grandfather looked at her. Then he spoke calmly. "We came for Jane." The words hit like a hammer. Blessing blinked. "What?" "We came to take her home." The room became silent. For a moment, Blessing thought she had heard wrong. Then she looked at Jane. Jane lowered her head, and that was when Blessing understood. Her daughter already knew. Her daughter wanted this. "No." The word came out instantly. "No." Jane's grandmother sighed softly. "Blessing." "No." Blessing stood up. "You can't just come here and take her." The grandfather remained calm. "We are not kidnapping her." "Then what are you doing?" "We are taking care of her." The words made Blessing even angrier. "I am taking care of her." The grandfather looked directly at her. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he asked quietly, "Are you?" The question felt like a slap. Blessing froze. The old man continued, "Are you even ready to be a mother?" The room became completely silent. Jane slowly looked up. Even Eunice, standing near the hallway, stopped moving. Nobody expected him to say that. Blessing stared at him, her eyes filling with anger. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind that needs an answer." Blessing shook her head. "I am trying." "I know." The grandfather nodded. "I believe you are trying." His voice remained calm. But trying and succeeding are not always the same thing. The words hurt, because part of Blessing knew there was truth inside them. Jane's grandmother finally spoke. "Our granddaughter is suffering." "We know." "I know," Blessing replied. "No." The grandmother shook her head. "You don't know everything." Blessing frowned. "What do you mean?" The grandmother looked toward Jane, then back at Blessing. "She cries to us." Blessing's eyes widened. "Almost every week." The grandfather continued. "She tells us everything. The bullying, the videos, the attention, the loneliness." Every sentence made Blessing feel worse, because she truly did not know. Not all of it. Not the full extent. Not the late-night phone calls. Not the tears. Not the pain Jane kept hiding. Then Jane finally spoke. Her voice was shaking. "I want to go with them." The words crushed whatever hope remained. Blessing turned toward her daughter. "Jane, I want to go. Jane." Tears rolled down Blessing's face. "I can fix this." Jane looked away. "You always say that." "I can. But when?" The question had no anger, no shouting, no disrespect, just pain, pure pain. "When?" Blessing opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Jane continued, "I lost Dad." The room became silent again. "And now everything is complicated." More tears rolled down her face. "I don't even know who I am anymore." Blessing's heart broke, because she could hear how exhausted her daughter was, how overwhelmed she was, how much she had been carrying alone. Jane slowly stepped closer to her grandparents, and that simple movement hurt more than anything, because she was choosing them, not her. Then Jane's grandmother spoke again. This time her voice was colder, much colder. She looked directly at Blessing and said, "I always wondered what my son saw in you." The room froze. Even Eunice looked shocked. Blessing's face changed instantly. The words were cruel, and everyone knew it. But the older woman continued, "He loved you. He defended you. He believed in you." Her eyes hardened. "But look at where we are now." Blessing could barely speak. The grandfather placed a hand on his wife's shoulder, but he did not disagree, because both of them had never approved of the life Blessing lived. The fame, the controversies, the constant travel, the endless spotlight. To them, it had always felt unstable, and now they believed their granddaughter was paying the price. The argument continued for almost an hour. Back and forth, back and forth. Nobody won. Nobody changed their mind. Eventually the decision was made. Jane was leaving. Blessing begged. She argued. She promised. She pleaded. But nothing changed. And the most painful part, Jane never moved away from her grandparents. Not once. When it was finally time to leave, Blessing walked toward her daughter. Tears filled her eyes. "Jane!" Jane looked up. Blessing opened her arms. For a second she hoped. Just a second. But Jane hesitated, then slowly stepped back. The movement was small, but it shattered something inside Blessing. Jane looked down. "I just want to go home. Home. Not here. Home." Blessing felt like she could not breathe. A few minutes later, the vehicle drove away. Jane sat in the back seat between her grandparents. She looked through the window. For a moment their eyes met. Then the vehicle disappeared down the road, and Blessing was left standing there, alone, completely alone. That night the mansion felt larger than ever. The silence felt endless. No footsteps, no voice, no daughter, nothing. Blessing walked into her room, closed the door, and finally broke. She grabbed her phone, the same phone that never stopped ringing. The same phone full of schedules, meetings, interviews, work, 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 work. Her hand trembled, then suddenly crash. The phone slammed into the floor. Pieces scattered across the room. The screen shattered instantly. But it wasn't enough. Not even close. Blessing grabbed a pillow and threw it. A lamp followed, then another object, then another. The room became a mess. Her breathing became heavier. Her tears became uncontrollable. Finally, she collapsed onto the floor. Alone. Completely alone. "What is wrong with me?" The words escaped her lips. Broken. Weak. She buried her face in her hands. "I tried." More tears. "I was trying." Her voice cracked. Then came the thought she could not escape. The thought that hurt the most. Her daughter did not want to stay with her. Her daughter chose someone else. And for the first time in years, the famous Talia Maggie did not feel like a superstar. She did not feel powerful. She did not feel successful. She did not feel admired. She felt like a mother who had failed. And as the night grew darker around her, Blessing sat alone on the floor, surrounded by silence, surrounded by broken pieces, wondering whether she had just lost her daughter forever. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more.